Hello, and thank you for joining us for another Hypercube Beyond Energy Community webinar. We'll give it a few minutes, give people a shot to join, get off their lunch break, get a sandwich or whatever they're up to. But really appreciate you all coming and spending your time listening to us and learning about all things data and AI M&A activity. Just while you wait, if you're not already a member, shame on you, but this QR code should take you to the sign up page for the Beyond Energy community. And this is Hypercube's go at trying to really add a lot of value and like knowledge share and kind of bring people together in the space. We do webinars, obviously. We have a podcast that you'll find on like Apple and Spotify and everywhere, where we talk to some incredible people actually from across the energy sector. You're not subjected to me talking for too long. It's usually really clever people in the space talking about how data and AI is impacting the way they're driving change and adopting stuff in and across the energy sector. So that's a really good opportunity to learn more. And then we host events. I'm not sure when our next events are, but we'll on the page or as part of the materials that come out following the webinar, we can follow up with a calendar of what events we've got next. We do online, but also in person, London, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Glasgow, usual favourite haunts for doing events. And then we try and throw breakfast briefings and things like that in and around other industry events that go on. So the point of the community really is to try and bring as many people together in the space to like compare notes and share horror stories and things like that on what we're up to try and move the needle on climate change, right? So a few more minutes, just let people join. For those of you that have just joined in, look, I'm Adam Sroka. We'll get into intros and stuff properly in a minute. I'm joined by Libby today, who is going to share all things AI and how you can really drive a lot of change and value from getting the kind of basics and the foundations right, especially when you're dealing with complex environments around like M&A activity, divestments, mergers and things. So right, I see quite a few people in the chat there. So what I think, if we just skip on, for those of you that have just joined, QR code will take you to the sign up page of the community, newsletter, podcast, briefing, events like things like this. Really good place to kind of collaborate with other people in the space and share knowledge on what you're up to. The other thing to be said before we start is we love feedback. So let us know what kind of events you want, what kind of materials, like what we can be doing to really add value to the space. And if you're keen on coming on the podcast or getting involved, we'd love to hear from you. So I think that's probably enough people, Libby, if we start.
Yeah, go for it.
So for those of you that have just joined, I hope you've got your sandwich or your coffee or whatever it is, and you're sitting down to join us for the next 30 minutes to talk about energy M&A and protecting IT and data estate deal value. This is a really interesting topic where lots of organizations, especially in like the age of AI and some of the bonkers valuations that are going on, organizations are coming together, lots of legacy businesses are hoovering up young startups, or people are breaking into new territories, or even divesting like old assets, especially in the energy space. Maybe you've got infrastructure that is aging or it's being passed on, and so you've got new companies appearing and disappearing all the time. And it presents a unique opportunity in energy because like that asset has data, it has a history, and there's value to be had there. Who owns that and who gets to keep it? I'm Adam Sroka. I'm CEO and technical co-founder here at Hypercube, and we'll get into a little bit about who we are and what we're up to in a minute. And I'm joined today by the incredible Libby Linfield. Libby?
What an intro. Well, thank you. I'm Libby, head of AI, so I'm kind of the AI nerd. When I think we're both kind of AI nerds, actually, but maybe the bigger AI nerd is in the title. But I've recently joined, very much a data scientist at heart, and we'll get into all the AI stuff later, but I kind of find this a very exciting space to be in. Lots of activity kind of going on. Also spent a lot of time working in private equity, kind of on some of those deals. So I love this space. It has a special place in my heart, kind of work on M&A and all these. The bigger the deal, the better. That's kind of what I enjoy. So we'll talk about it a little bit later on.
Amazing. So, brief intro. For those of you that maybe this is the first time you've interacted with some of our material or the community, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hope we haven't scared you off just yet, but we are Hypercube, and Hypercube was really founded with the intention that we wanted to build the best possible technology consultancy like everyone, right? But we wanted to build the best partner for the energy sector. A lot of consultancies and solutions out in the wild in tech land are really like generic, and they try and be all things to all people, and that can work, and there's a lot of incredible businesses and consultancies out there. But in my experience, like having worked in the energy sector around power trading and BES and like ancillary markets and the balancing mechanism, I found that the kind of barrier to entry, domain understanding, is so high that it can take months of warming up and onboarding and learning what the infinite number of acronyms or different players in the system do and how they make money and why data is important to them and what their real intentions are in this space. So with that in mind, I founded Hypercube with the intention that if we only work in this space and we try and attract and bring in real deep expertise from across the energy sector to bring that capability and experience to bear on the problems facing our customers, we'd have a huge advantage, which means that they'll be able to do what they need to do more efficiently, more effectively, and we can actually stand toe to toe as like a partner and not just like a load of database folks that are there sort of plugging away at the tech in a cupboard in the corner, but we can actually bring value and domain understanding to what we do. So this slide tries to capture that, and actually the logos on the right are some of the organizations that we've hired from. We have a strategic pillar that we try and hire more than half of our staff from the energy sector, so that we're not just making it up as we go along, but we come with that deep experience to bear. And over time, as we do more and more projects in this space, we really get to understand and learn what matters to energy. And that's why this like webinar and content like this exists, because we know that actually in the energy space, this becomes a really important piece of the puzzle. So M&A, right? Good fun, good maybe for some, maybe not for others, but it's a thing that's happening all the time, and especially in big established industries like energy, where capex is enormous to build and develop and understand how infrastructure gets deployed. Like you look at offshore wind, right? And actually it's just a fundamental part of the puzzle that you get to a certain point post CFD and you raise more capital by selling equity off because it's cheaper than debt and all this. In that environment, you've got so much to consider, and a thing that sometimes gets overlooked or doesn't get the treatment it deserves is that AI technology data layer. And people forget that like a physical asset that exists on the grid or delivering a service as part of the infrastructure will constantly generate data the whole time it's alive, from the logging data it produces to the revenues and the markets it plays in to the field notes that are captured by the engineers that go and service it and maintain it. And locked away in that data, there's a treasure trove of insights. And we're now starting to see, like up until a few years ago, computers weren't very good at unlocking all the kind of rainbow colored spreadsheets and PDFs and things. But now we're starting to see some of that sort of treasure chest prize open, with large language models can finally like go and look at the 40,000 PDFs you've got stored away on the cloud or SharePoint and realize the huge benefits. And we're seeing that like, yeah, 2/3 nearly of businesses are saying that actually they can see how AI is bringing value and enabling innovation within their organization. And in M&A specifically, if anyone's gone through all the fun of doing one, you have this really unusual environment where you either go from like one information data estate and split it in two when you divest. So how do you clone all the data? Who gets to keep what? Who keeps the history? Like how do you clone environments, trading, like assets, these digital things? That's quite challenging. And or you go from multiple estates and you try and merge them into one, and you've now got two ERP systems, two CRM systems, two trading management systems, etc., etc. How do you bring that together? And having worked in a previous life for a consultancy that did a lot of M&A activity, I can tell you that it's very easy to underestimate how difficult it is to get into the weeds and deeply understand how you do those two jobs, bringing things apart or pulling them together. And it's not a surprise to me that the vast majority of these projects are overrun by a considerable cost. Now in the age of AI, as I hinted at the top of the session, we're seeing that actually bolting assets and data and businesses together and leveraging these new technologies is actually adding multiples to what could otherwise be linearly growing or flat stagnant businesses that are doing all right. But by bringing AI and bringing this data together, there's actually new value to be had, and that creates new economic opportunity and hopefully attracts more investment to the sector, means we can start deploying more capital to climate change and doing more at speed, right? So M&A activity is, they're kind of starting to see this and it's starting to accelerate, and they are starting to understand that the heart of all that pain and that value is the IT and the data estate. And there's a lot of risk and value and like understanding locked away in doing this really, really well, and having a clear path and doing your due diligence, not just from a financial perspective, but from like an IT and data infrastructure perspective, all the way through to the exit plan, has a material impact on the final number. And at the same time as all that's going on, so like, yeah, the sort of VCs, private equity's woken up, the big pension funds have woken up to this stuff. At the same time, the technological landscape is accelerating at a pace we've never seen before. And you've got simultaneously the top-down pull for, or push from like execs and boards to say, we need to start adopting these technologies, we need to start showing innovation. But you've also got the bottom up and this kind of idea of like shadow AI is the new shadow IT. We've got a blog post about our website, talks about how individuals in their role want to find automations and optimizations. They want to start leveraging the tools that they're seeing co-workers and peers from other businesses reap good benefit from. But what happens in an environment where we've just seen Claude bot and the whole Maltbot saga play out very recently, right? And incredible tool, does really wonderful things, just so happens it's one of the most easy to exploit like security vulnerability vectors we've ever seen, and there's almost no way of understanding whether or not someone's deployed it within your IT estate because it pretends to be you, right? So in that world, how do you track and how do you monitor that? The world's waking up to this stuff. New threat vectors are appearing all the time. How's that going to affect your valuation or your critical path on your M&A activity? And I hinted at this, but in my opinion, like, yeah, M&A is uniquely complex within energy because you're not just dealing with like optimizing shopping baskets or media or things that like no one dies or nothing explodes. In energy, you've got critical infrastructure, you've got like national level security threats for certain asset classes, you've got typically long lifetimes of systems that have survived technological change from on-premise to the cloud adoption to the internet to all this stuff has happened whilst this transformer or this wind farm has been churning away doing its job. So how do you corral all that and bring it into something someone can put a price on and understand a path to moving it from organization A to organization B? Every business is fragmented and complex and siloed, but especially so in energy, where every silo requires such deep domain specialization. Like anyone that's worked in this space for long enough knows that like operations and trading and finance sometimes speak totally different languages. And so how do you from the outside map a journey that brings all that together in a way that others can understand and make sense of and capture the IT complexity that surrounds it? So we're seeing from what we've experienced and where we've been brought in to consult that actually data and AI is now coming to the forefront and being classed as a first class citizen on the real risk and the driver of value. It's speed to day one. It's the how scalable is an exit on the other side. Like if this is a business that's being bought and enhanced and with a plan to sell or merge later on, how do you reliably scale the value in that asset or that business? And the risks are colossal, right? Again, fragmented, complicated IT systems that have evolved organically, warts and all, over decades. And how do you map the really complicated, often cross-geography, cross-regulatory boundary IT and identity and permissions and security incidents that you have to navigate safely and securely and knowledgeably to give everyone confidence that this is going to go the way everyone with the spreadsheet says it's going to go?
And I guess now that's when AI kind of enters the chat a little bit. So, yeah, AI, the buzzword that everyone has come to love and see absolutely everywhere, over LinkedIn, over literally any platform anyone can look at. AI is reshaping energy M&A in particular in multiple ways. I'm going to focus on kind of how it's in the deal perimeter, but I think you can take a step back even from there. And, ultimately AI has boomed in the past few years. And it's also driving a huge demand for data centers, and everyone's seeing it in the news, and Texas building loads of stuff, Arizona. But that in turn is accelerating the need for clean energy, because ultimately building a bunch of data centers, that's kind of working against everyone's net zero targets. So there's almost becoming this symbiotic relationship between a kind of a push for renewables and a push that way, as well as AI. And that in turn is driving M&A within the energy sector. So it's interesting. It's kind of impacting it even from an outside and from a high level. It's also then we step into deals, it's very much changing how deals are executed. So a while ago, private equity firms, private credit wouldn't necessarily use AI. It was very much spreadsheet, rainbow spreadsheet, crunching numbers, just doing a bunch of analytics. But actually now we're seeing that they're using AI. So whether it's deal scanning or actually on analytics on the deal itself, which in turn, I think we saw last year, there's a bunch of reports on this. There's like McKinsey and all the big guys have done reports. But last year in energy, there was actually a drop in deal volume, but the deal value was higher. So it's kind of showing that, yes, AI is being used, but a lot of the kind of private equity firms and different people in this sector are moving towards more tailored, much bigger deals than they were before, which is just an interesting shift that's happening. So that's already happening. It's impacting M&A itself. It's impacting how M&A is taking place. But then when we get to in it, it's now actually operating inside the deal perimeter itself. So a difference now is it's already operating. So it's already embedded in a lot of core operational workflows. It drives trading strategies, renewable forecasting, battery optimization, asset performance, whole bunch of different stuff. It's kind of transcended years of experimentation, and it's now embedded in a lot of decision making. I think, Adam, you've got fuck around-itis in a blog post a while ago that I was also victim to it kind of in my early career, that I was in a machine learning team. We were just kind of chipped away. I think we're in an office in Glasgow doing a bunch of stuff. Very, very cool, but it wasn't necessarily driving any operations or building new products. It was very much, there's a cool machine learning. Well, back then that was the cooler thing to say it was, but there was a cool machine learning team that was kind of just doing some innovation over there. But actually that has changed a lot recently. So it now means that if AI performance changes within a business, the operational performance now changes. So it's almost become, I'm kind of a bit of a Lord of the Rings fan, so this is my reference, but it's almost become the one ring to rule them all. So like whoever controls AI the best kind of also controls the rest as well. So it's very much starting to be on the forefront, and people are waking up to its importance. So secondly, so why this is actually changing the deal itself. So it is changing the economics of deals that are happening. It, as AI now directly impacts EBITDA. So kind of your forecast accuracy affects the imbalance costs, optimization logic affects trading margin, predictive maintenance affects uptime if it's been around for a long time. It's kind of importantly, it's no longer advisory. It's very, very operational. So if you're acquiring a business, you're also acquiring the algorithms that generate part of the earnings, which means that you do have to take into consideration, have it as part of your due diligence activities. It's opening up also new questions. I think, again, 5 years ago, kind of standard questions would be, what does your IT estate look like? What's the ERP system like? A bunch of those kind of questions, really. Whereas now, questions kind of like, who owns the models? Where's the underlying IP? Can training data be legally transferred? Are your models explainable and auditable? Is their governance robust enough? All these different questions have now started to appear as part of due diligence and part of these questions. And that's the thing, I think if you ignore that, you do open up quite a lot of risk. I think, again, it was innovative a while ago. People weren't really looking at the risks. It was just a cool thing, playing around with some data. But actually now, the risk of ignoring all of this stuff is actually quite material. In the energy sector in particular, you've got Ofgem kind of eyes on this stuff. You've got the EU AI Act. There's a few things going on in the sector. So the risk is kind of regulatory exposure, safety implications, potential market manipulation. If you're building models that are shifting a market in a certain direction and everyone's using the same model, that does have implications. There's a great story about that actually happened in housing prices. So there was models around kind of predicting, if you have a pool, it goes up by $50,000. But because everyone was using the same models, it would artificially take on bias and drive up house prices in already high house price areas, as an example. So you do need to consider things like that. And if models kind of do degrade during migration, or data pipelines break, or if optimization logic isn't portable, your margins basically can erode, and quite quietly, without you really realizing. So it can almost undermine the deal value before anyone even realizes. So I guess once the deal is done, so kind of, the exciting bit for me, the value creation bit, I think post-close in energy M&A in particular. So from what we can see, you kind of move through was 3 critical stages. So kind of broken them up into protect, control, and accelerate. So first, it's kind of about protecting earnings. Kind of just talked about how AI is actually really impacting EBITDA and key earnings within a business. So it means that you're not just trying to stabilize systems and people, but actually also stabilize algorithms that are driving trading, forecasting, optimization. Because ultimately, if model performance does drop, margin also drops. Something in here as well is kind of retaining critical AI talent. I think there's a lot of single person dependency and expertise that's kind of building up. You've gone from these probably very, very small teams. Like I was in a team of like 3 people for a 500 odd person business. All of the machine learning knowledge at that time was just with those 3 people. Like that was it. If all 3 of us left, which was possible, the AI market at the moment is kind of insane. It's gone. Like all of your knowledge about those models are gone. So that is also something to consider as well. Once you've kind of thought about protection, I think next is kind of going on to regaining control. So I think previously, true independence is not just exiting a TSA anymore. It's like owning your data, owning your models, owning the optimization logic, owning all of these different things, as well as having really strong governance. Again, everyone's kind of, it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment, but owning and establishing proper AI governance, data governance, auditability, all of these kind of things. And then finally, I guess like in a bias, so my favorite part is that it's the cool value creation part. So once you've done that, once you're kind of stable, independent, AI does become a value lever. So that's when you can think about improving forecast accuracy. Maybe you're looking at finance departments, looking into payroll, looking into all the different use cases and things that haven't been done previously, but you could very quickly do once you're in a stable position. Ultimately to try and increase operational efficiency. Maybe there's new revenue drivers, new products, all those different things that you can do. So I think that's the thing to sum up in modern kind of energy deals and M&A. Success isn't measured by like system uptime. It's measured by preserved and expanded optimization performance, which means that AI really is becoming central and something to be considered as part of M&A. And then obviously once you've closed as well. Guess I'll pass back to Adam.
Thanks very much. Yeah, and so like for me, I think as a professional, it's like a really fun time to be in the space, and for these are always messy, right? And they're always like complicated, but being a techie in the space now, you're probably the one that knows where all the gold nuggets are hidden and like where the value lives in the data, what things that if only we could do this or that, you would be able to see significant returns and all that stuff. So it's a good time to like surface that stuff and try and bring some focus on it. And I think for like management and like leadership in these kinds of businesses, again, the pace of the technological change is so fast and people are enthused again about like getting data in order and making sense of it, that you can really invest in kind of like fixing what's there or getting what's there into a really good state. And it's not just going to like pay for itself, it's going to significantly return on doing that. So like master data management and data catalogs and stuff are cool again, and everyone wants to do them because actually they're the things that's going to make AI really go. And it's good practice, and we've been banging on about as professionals for years. It's good practice anyway to do that stuff. So it's a really exciting time to be there. From what we've seen for the deals we've consulted into and looked at, IT, data, and AI are becoming central risk and value levers within the environments. If you're going to do AI, like it's not good enough anymore to just, we need an AI and top down management says this, Gartner says that, let's go. You actually need to show the stepping stones from where you are now to where you want to get to how you're going to get there, and thread that with reality and like the actual kind of constraints and realities of your business today and what you can achieve in these timeframes. And you need to design with the end in mind and make sure that you are getting your arms around all of it. Now that seems like a lot, and it is a lot, right? These are complicated processes, they always are. And there's a new lens that you need to look at this all through. But the ones that do it well see enormous upside from doing it and a huge reduction in the risks that you would otherwise expose yourself to. How does this play out in reality? I mean, we've done a few of these. It was hard to pick one, but this was a really fun example of a customer, a very large energy organization that we've dealt with for a long time. Very quickly were divested from or part of the business was divested, and they wanted to totally rebrand. And what that allowed them, basically because they were splitting up, they wanted to keep the brand on one entity and not the other. So the new entity had to come up with things that you think might be trivial, but actually really complicated, like domain names linked to security and permissions that cross the globe. Like, this is a global organization. How do you propagate those changes? All the like certificates and things that go with it. How do you do that level of new systems, like new processes, new cloud environments, like new data stores that look exactly like they used to look? Because actually for the people in the business working day to day, like you can't just press pause on the operations of your organization because you've sold or you want to rebrand or you want to change the website. Those people have to do their job. But if you're if underneath the surface, like swan theory, right, underneath the surface, you're seeing actually with unplugging the whole data store and plugging in something new, doing that with no disruption to the day-to-day operations is actually quite a challenge. And so we did that with them, and we came in and we spent time talking about, well, what were the stepping stones to where they wanted to get to? How can we prioritize the right use cases and the right elements? And then how can we map that to a calendar of things that we can deliver that has flexibility and adaptability baked in, so that we can press pause on any single activity without massively slowing down the overall program of work? And how do you do that in a way that respects the interests and the IP of both parties on the other end of that process, right? How do you do it securely? And the long and short of it, and we can share this case study, but the long and short of it is spend a lot of time talking to the people that are in the weeds of the business, that live their day to day, and build that level of trust, not just with the leadership, not just with the people that are pulling the levers on the finance, but the actual people in senior management, middle management, and on the ground, and build trust with them that you've got their best interest at heart and you can do it as a true partner with them and not to them. How do we go about this? There's a few ways of doing it. I mean, no two deals are the same, but that's not stopped us, never stopped us before from trying to come up with some pre-canned or pre-designed approaches. And this is just leveraging our experience and all the learnings that we've done over time on what does and doesn't go well. And effectively, there's several routes, and your specific context will always be bespoke to you, but we can compose the right solution for you out of the building blocks that we've used in the past, right? So strongly recommend deep, significant IT due diligence where we understand mapping processes, workflows like permissions, sets, and user groups. How are your people using your systems? Are they using them? We've all been in the meeting with the Power BI dashboard that no one ever views and hasn't been checked for years but cost tens of thousands to build, right? Then how can we work with you to map and plan either the consolidation or the separation stages? That is probably the hairiest, scariest bit. Like, how do you do that smoothly without significantly impacting the humans that are going to be subject to any of the changes that you make? Thread that into the wider non-IT part. How do you do that with the minimal disruption? How do you make sure you don't disrupt the flow of operations or any of the business? And then finally, make sure that we're on hand and we're prepared to support you after go live or the end date, because often there'll be niggles that aren't caught in any process, or there'll be changes at the last minute, or things might not be actioned, or people might not be made aware within your business, right? Because big, complicated organizations, in those environments, people trying to do stuff the old way, or things not working, or maybe someone's been disconnected from a certain system and they need connected back up. Making sure that we are ready to go and on hand to react quickly and resolve any issues that might fall out the other side gives everyone that peace of mind that this isn't a cliff edge they're coming off the end of, but actually it's a journey that we'll all go on with together. If you're interested in looking at some support with this, we've come up with a bit of a package that we're calling our IT and data estate due diligence. This tries to thread together like all the stages that we would put in a kind of best practice consultative engagement where we help you navigate the journey we've been describing today. And that's both from an IT, cloud infrastructure, data platform, and AI and like machine learning operational leverage idea. So this isn't a one size fits all, but it's on the table. So please reach out to us if this sounds interesting for you, or you think we're not quite like this, let us know. But we can share the details of this, come and talk to us. Again, these are like the lessons that we've learned doing this elsewhere and how we can bring that to bear on that experience to bear on your specific context to make sure that we align on something that's really going to help you, whether or not that's us doing the engineering work or advising in or checking the homework of someone else. We're really keen to be supportive and like a partner in this journey with you. It's a challenge, right? These are complicated things, but it doesn't have to be totally unknown, right? We've walked this path before and we can tell you about where all the pit holes are. If you do want to get in touch with us, this QR code should take to the page where you can find out more about that package and others, but please do email us or reach out, fire your questions in the chat here, and we'll do our best to get back to you on those and catch up. But I will say thank you so much for joining us and spending the time listening to us. I hope it was useful. Once again, join the Beyond Energy community, check the podcast out, the newsletters. We're trying to do everything we can to bring a lot of value to the community and to the industry, and that's only done best with feedback. And if there's things you want to see or things that are like you're not sure about, there's no silly questions, like we will do our best to answer them or find people in the community that can answer them for you. So thank you once again for joining us today. Thanks Libby for helping me present this, and yeah, I wish everyone all the best.